was Israel to eat during Sabbatical and Jubilee years? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Leviticus on Walking Through the Bible. If you have a Bible with you, turn to Leviticus 25. We're going to be reading from verses 18 to 28. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Leviticus 25, beginning of verse 18. So you shall observe my statutes and keep my judgments and perform them, and you will dwell in the land in safety. Then the land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill and dwell in there safely. And if you say, what shall we eat in the 7th year, since we shall not sow nor gather in produce? Then will I command my blessing on you in the 6th year, and it will bring forth produce enough for 3 years. And you shall sow in the 8th year, and eat old produce until the 9th year. Until its produce comes in, you shall eat of the old harvest. The land shall not be sold permanently, for the land is mine. For you are strangers and sojourners with me. And in all the land of your possession you shall grant redemption of the land. If one of your brethren becomes poor and has sold some of his possession, and if his redeeming relative comes to redeem it, then he may redeem what his brother sold. Or if the man has no one to redeem it, but he himself becomes able to redeem it, then let him count the years since its sale, and restore the remainder to the man to whom he sold it, that he may return to his possession. But if he is not able to have it restored to himself, then what was sold shall remain in the hand of him who bought it until the year of Jubilee. And in the Jubilee it shall be released, and he shall return to his possession. In this chapter we've seen thus far 2 observances that Israel was to keep, though these were not feasts like in chapter 23. These 2 observances were the sabbatical year, which occurred every 7 years, and the Jubilee year, which occurred every 50 years. What these 2 observances had in common was that during those years, the land was not to be planted or harvested, but was to rest. The Jubilee year also carried with it the fact that land was to be returned to its original owner, something we'll discuss in more detail later on in this lesson. Now, as a result of these laws, the people would have to go without harvest for 1 and sometimes 2 years, so the natural question is, how would they eat during those years without harvest? The answer is that the Lord would provide extra during the 6th year so that the people could eat. If you recall from our study of Genesis, God told Pharaoh through Joseph about 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. Now, during those 7 years of plenty, the land produced an overabundance of food. Egypt during that time could have simply eaten to their heart's content, but then would have nothing for the 7 years of famine. They didn't do that, for they stored up for those 7 years of famine. That's what Israel was to do here. If it was a regular sabbatical year, they would have enough food from the harvest of the 6th year to last until the harvest of the 8th year. If the Jubilee was to follow immediately after, they would have enough food until the harvest of the 9th year. God was the one who gave the law, so God would be the one who needed to provide for Israel. He had done so in the wilderness thus far with manna and quail, so it should be nothing for Israel to have them have faith that he would do so during these years. However, generations would come who never saw the manna or quail. They too needed to learn to have faith in God and depend on him, so teaching them this lesson during these times when the land was to be left dormant was important. Today we need to depend on God too. He has not promised to make us rich, but provide our needs, and so we need to have faith that he will. Coming down to verse 23, we return to the regulations about the Jubilee year. As we said in the last lesson, the land that the people possessed was not to be sold permanently. Rather, it would be rented or leased. Why? Because the land was God's. He owned it and divided it among Israel how he chose. They thus had no right to sell it away forever. If they became poor and had need of money, they could sell their land, but only for a period of time until the next Jubilee. After that time, the land was to be returned to the person or family that originally owned it. But even in the interim, between the Jubilee years, redemption of the land was to be granted. If a man sold his land and someone near of kin to him could redeem it, then redemption must be granted. If the man himself was somehow able to redeem it before the Jubilee year, he was allowed to do so. For the price of redemption, the man was to count the years since the sale and restore the value of any years that were remaining based on what would be the fair value of the crops of the land in that time. If redemption could not be made, then at the next Jubilee year, the land would be released and returned in full. In our next lesson, we will learn a wrinkle in this law as concerned houses within a walled city. With that, our time is up for today. Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Leviticus 25, verses 29 to 38, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.